Hi, this is Dr. Eric Kuelker. Welcome to this video on the research results of using feedback-improved therapy with couples. The principle behind feedback-improved therapy is that feedback improves performance. As soon as somebody gets objective feedback on their performance, they significantly improve. This is just as true for therapists as it is for athletes. Therapists need feedback on two variables: client outcomes and therapeutic alliance. Client outcomes refers to whether the client is experiencing less psychological distress as a result of being therapy, whether they're feeling better over time. The therapeutic alliance refers to the sense of teamwork between the client and the therapist, whether the client feels heard and respected, whether they feel the therapist is helping them achieve their goals, and if the therapist's approach makes sense to them. All the studies I'm going to report on use the outcome rating scale and the session rating scale. The ORS is a measure of psychological distress, and the SRS is a measure of the therapeutic alliance. These are the exact same measures I use in my work with clients. On the video on my homepage, I reported on the results from Dr. Reese when he used the ORS and SRS in a study of individual therapy. He found that when psychotherapists use verbal inquiry with half their clients, then clients improved by 5 or 6 points on a 40-point scale of psychological distress. And verbal inquiry is just asking the client, "So, how are you doing today, and how was the session?" It's the way that the vast majority of psychotherapy is done in North America. However, when the same therapist got objective feedback on client's level of psychological distress and the therapeutic alliance, then clients improved by 10 points or 12 points on a 40-point scale of psychological distress. Let's see if similar effects are found in marriage therapy. This study is the largest randomized clinical trial ever done in the field of marriage therapy. It was conducted in Norway and published in the top journal in the field of clinical psychology. The design was very simple. For every therapist, with half their caseload they used verbal inquiry, and with the other half of their clients they got objective measures as to whether the couple was feeling better and their sense of teamwork with the therapist. The researchers found that when the therapist used verbal inquiry, only 10% of the couples reported that both of them were feeling well. However, if the same therapist got objective feedback on the other half of their clients, then 40% of the couples said, "Both of us are feeling well." These results held up at 6-month follow-up. 12% of the couples said both of them were feeling well at 6 months, whereas 36% said both of them were feeling well if the therapist had happened to use objective feedback with them. A critical element in marriage therapy is the separation rate. At 6-month follow-up, they found that when the therapist had used verbal inquiry, 34% of those couples had split up. However, with the other half of their caseload, if the therapist had used objective feedback with those couples, then only 18% of those couples split up. In other words, a couple was twice as likely to hold their marriage together if the therapist had used objective feedback. A critical element of scientific research is replication. If another person can run the study and find similar results in a different location. Dr. Reese ran a marriage study in the United States, and his paper will appear shortly. He found that when a therapist used verbal inquiry, then couples improved only by 3.5 points on the ORS, which is a 40-point scale of psychological distress. However, if the same therapist used objective feedback, then couples improved by 8.5 points on the ORS. This is more than a doubling of the effectiveness of therapy. He also looked at the number of couples with clinically significant change. Here he found that 18% of the couples in the verbal inquiry condition had clinically significant change. However, if the therapist had used objective feedback, then 54% of the couples reported clinically significant change. This is a tripling of the effectiveness of psychotherapy. The conclusion from these 3 research studies is clear. Objective feedback on how clients are progressing in therapy and their ratings of the therapeutic alliance doubles the effectiveness of psychotherapy. In some cases, it triples it. This occurs in therapy with individuals and with couples. If you have any further questions, feel free to email them to me at the email address that follows. Goodbye.